What's good, everybody out there on YouTube? This is your man Shadicstick dropping some hot faraka on this mic, and you're watching MobShadic100, the internet show that opens up your psyche. Today we'll be talking about the prologue of Kingdom Hearts 2. Now, before this video begins, I need to preface it with this. Kingdom Hearts 2 is the most influential RPG in my life, and it shaped not how I only consume RPGs, but also what I dislike and like in video games as a whole. And this opening is ultimately one of the most iconic in not only just all of RPGs, but in all of gaming, especially for the time. Despite this, there has been this growing sense of disdain not only just in the Kingdom Hearts community, but within the greater gaming community as a whole for this once iconic opening. And there's a few reasons for that. Admittedly, it's slow, and it takes a while for the gameplay and story to pick up. And ultimately, it doesn't really affect the gameplay in the later game outside of the growth tree that you use and teaching you how to play the game. This makes replaying Kingdom Hearts 2 laborious because of its length, or specifically the length of the prologue. But despite the rough reception it's been getting lately due to it making Kingdom Hearts 2, a game designed around the player replaying it harder to replay, why do so many people actually remember it fondly upon their first playthrough? Well, we'll dive into that in this video. Also, despite wanting to use the PS2 version of Kingdom Hearts 2, I'll be recording the PS4 version using PS4 footage for this video. With that out of the way, let's begin. The first thing Kingdom Hearts 2 does that I feel a lot of sequels mess up is setting up the story for newcomers. There's this misconception that Kingdom Hearts is some super hard to comprehend series, and I find that extremely funny. And it's because a lot of games will go out of their way to separate themselves from previous entries, catch the player up, and have relatively self-contained stories. Well, yes, the games do connect and they intertwine in a way that's super complex in order to enjoy the individual stories of those games. Most of the time, you do not need any preface for the rest of the series. There's only 2 games in the series really that I can think of that require the player to really play previous entries in the series. And Kingdom Hearts 2 is not one of those games. But something Kingdom Hearts 2 does is it heavily intertwines previous games in the series, but also catches the players up if they haven't played it or if it's been a while since they played them. The plot happens directly after Kingdom Hearts Rechain of Memories and another game in the series that I'm going to talk about in a future video, but it disconnects the players from those games by not relying heavily on them for the game's prologue. This allows players old and new to experience something new and foreign to them. And this is done by establishing the character of Roxas. He doesn't immediately scream any connections to Sora, but as the prologue progresses, they are slowly revealed. Why is it important that Roxas is the protagonist? In every way, shape, and form, he is a different character than Sora. He's much more subdued, a lot more serious in tone, and a lot less prone to impulsivity than Sora is. On top of that, his motivations for doing things are a lot different than Sora. His life is seemingly disconnected from past events in the series, and it makes it seem like the story is ultimately disconnected from past series events. On top of that, his character arc isn't driven by his own self-motivation to get better or to beat someone or get somebody back, but by the actions others take for him, whether that be his friends trying to enjoy their last week of summer vacation together, or characters trying to get Roxas to return to Sora. While Roxas does take actions that affect his story and affect the story of Kingdom Hearts 2, they are always a response to what another character does to him, never because he has the initial drive to do anything else, and it really distinguishes him from Sora, and I like that. Roxas is ultimately not allowed to live the life that he wants, and that's what drives the narrative. Combine this with the flashbacks that Roxas has that are obviously not of his own memories, and it makes you ask who and what exactly is Roxas. The mysteries behind all of the things happening in Twilight Town are all made to be disconnected from the grander plot of Kingdom Hearts because they seem like small town issues, but ultimately every little thing Roxas does is out of his control, and it seems to matter a lot more than what the plot wants you to know or that it lets on. The 7 Wonders, the Struggle Tournament, and the beach trip juxtapose the interference from people like Diz, Naminé, and Axel, or even the presence of the Nobodies. It's just how these small town problems and mysteries wind up ultimately becoming much larger scale issues for Roxas, and this creates a sense of mystery for the player that I don't think many series have been able to accomplish to this degree. It's the difference between being a regular teenager and being ultimately this catalyst for what's to come in the future for not only just your town, but essentially the universe. And that's what I really love about the sense of mystery in Kingdom Hearts 2's Prologue. Now, one of the biggest flaws upon replaying Kingdom Hearts 2 is the pacing of the opening. It's just really slow. But I think upon the first playthrough of Kingdom Hearts 2, it is a blessing. One of the things it does is it allows the player to feel like they get a decent amount of time with not only Roxas, but the rest of the cast of Twilight Town, like Hayner, Prince, Olette, and so on. It's sort of a bait and switch for the rest of the game, because we're made to believe that Roxas is going to be the protagonist of the game. We're made to think that he's going to be the one going on adventures, when in reality, that's just not true. The protagonist of the game is still Sora. But what this winds up allowing is for this really smooth transition, and it allows the pacing to essentially kick it up to 11 once the player gets to Sora's portion of the prologue. It's a way not only to introduce the faster gameplay of Kingdom Hearts 2, but also the faster and bigger scale of the story that Kingdom Hearts 2 brings to the series. Ultimately, the thing that I think Kingdom Hearts 2's prologue does the best is Roxas' send-off. There's a level of acceptance that Roxas needs to have before leaving, and it's somewhat grim. Roxas' arc is accepting that while he is his own person, he ultimately needs to return to Sora for the greater good. It's this moral dilemma on whether people should give themselves up for the greater good or live their lives for themselves. Because while yes, people should have their own free will, and everyone wants Roxas to have his own free will, there are bigger issues at hand in the Kingdom Hearts universe, and they need Sora to tackle those issues. And the only way to get Sora back and to complete his recovery is for Roxas to return to him. On top of this, Roxas begins to slowly realize how closely tied he is to Sora. But instead of Sora destroying Roxas, which is what was previously thought to be needed for nobodies to return to their original body, he just returned without question. He realizes that sometimes the greater good is more important than your own personal goal. And I think it's something that Kingdom Hearts has explored relatively well, specifically with this character, because ultimately Roxas is his own person. His personality is different than Sora, his experiences are different than Sora's. He even looks different than Sora, which is very uncommon for nobodies. And this ultimately ties together what makes Kingdom Hearts 2's prologue so good and so compelling. It's less of a story or a prologue about the main character getting back in shape, and more so about a guy who's just trying to enjoy his last week of summer vacation, and that the world won't let him do that. With every step he takes to try to have a normal life, he just can't. And he ultimately had to realize that his summer vacation was over. With all that, thanks for watching this video. How do y'all feel about Kingdom Hearts 2's prologue? Have you played Kingdom Hearts 2? Did this video make you want to go play Kingdom Hearts 2? Let me know in the comment section down below. Also, make sure y'all check out my last MobShadic100. It was about Dragon Ball Z Budokai, the first Dragon Ball Budokai game, and ultimately what I believe to be the first great anime game to ever exist. And also make sure y'all set notifications for the next Shadicstick live. I'll be doing it soon. Also make sure you follow your boy on Twitter to keep updated with the channel. It'd be highly appreciated. And also check out the poll on the community tab. It's gonna help me decide what content I do going forward. I plan on doing at least one of these once a week, so look out for more MobShadic100 going into the future. I now have the time to do such a thing. But with that being said, this has been your man Shadicstick. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Remember, Hot Frog turns to Cold Blizaga. Check out some of my other videos. Follow your boy on Twitter, and have a good one. Peace.